Yo, DTMB, it's Ownin here, and I wanted to talk about something in patch 1.13 that just got announced in the patch notes, which the patch is not out yet as of this recording. Uh, there was a customization thread that's been on the Naughty Dog forum since at least January. I've been following it to some extent. They got some responses, they were looking forward to this, and we didn't exactly get what we wanted, which was a complete revamp of the customization system, which included colors, like, giving everybody pretty much Flynn's color set or whatever. We didn't get that. What we are getting instead are 170 new customization items, at least about that much. And most of it is going to be, I think, in headgear stuff. But what's most interesting about this that I want to talk about are the headgear pieces. Now, again, keep in mind the patch is not out yet. Neither are these items for download. I don't know which items are going to be downloadable or not. As far as I know, the Jack goggles really are the only ones that are the new that you have to purchase from the store. I think you can get the headgear stats or whatever, headgear pieces with the stats or whatever in the in-game without having to buy them. But generally speaking, people are worried about how these new headgear pieces with the stat buffs and debuffs will work in this game, because this game right now isn't exactly the most balanced game. It's decently balanced, but people would argue with me that it's not decently balanced. I can talk about that in another video, but for the most part, people are worried these items might change the game up a lot. And in some ways they might. In some ways I can see why they might, but the buffs themselves are really small. They're like by plus 10%, minus 16%, and certain stats. So like, let's say there was a headgear piece that, I don't know, gave you plus 10% regeneration speed. That's for your health. Okay. And then let's say the headgear decreases your aim movement speed by 15%, Okay, that's a pretty fair trade-off, because the rate that your regeneration speed goes, like, the rate at which it goes, like, because it's faster, you're sacrificing some movement speed, so you're an easier target while you're aiming at somebody. And you can get out of that aim mode and start sprinting or something like that to try and get to cover to regenerate your health, and then you might be safer. You might be safer in cover in general. It might force someone to go into cover most of the time than, say, being out in the open all the time and shooting someone down. Of course, these are really small adjustments to your stats, but they could indeed change how a player plays. Which is another interesting aspect, because that's making the player experiment with something new that isn't exactly something that's huge and big to the game that completely changes how you play it. I mean, it could change your play style is what I'm saying. It doesn't mean that, like, suddenly you're playing a completely different game, but the idea is that suddenly you're playing somewhat differently without, forcing gameplay changes onto the player, which is something people often would prefer to see than something like this. But these headgear pieces I'm not entirely worried about, because they change only small things. It looks like they're not going to change too much about it. I mean, pretty much players are going to be experimenting with these headgear pieces over the next couple of weeks, and we're going to either see that one headgear piece does something that's really amazing and all the really good players flock to it, or we're going to see a variety of different headgear pieces with these stats and different loadouts to accommodate those new headgear pieces, to work with them, and thus give the game some sort of variety in a different way than just gunplay, which is fairly interesting and I think would be cool. And I could see why Naughty Dog did this then, because of that. So it's a very interesting direction to take the game in. Along with that is some microtransactions, which could be pretty problematic in the sense that players will just go for the best stuff, they'll pay for it, and then this has never really been done on a console game before. Keep that in mind. I've never really seen any shooter at all have this sort of a customization piece buff or debuff your stats. So it should be pretty interesting in that sense as well, to see how the game develops. I definitely know for sure that loadouts will change. I feel that loadouts will change to accommodate for these stat changes, because I don't think they would allow, you know, a regeneration level 3 booster to stack with a headgear piece that increases your regeneration stat as well. That wouldn't really make any sense, because otherwise, wouldn't that mean that the regeneration level 3 booster is not really maximizing the speed that you can regenerate at? Which would make no sense, because you work so hard to level that booster up all the way. So, and in another sense, it's like, well, for people who don't want to level up a certain booster all the way, they can just use a headgear piece to accomplish the same thing. So say someone doesn't want to level up scoped in all the way, maybe a headgear piece boosts the, you know, reduces the pain wobble they get by, like, I don't know, 15%. That would be something that would be useful to someone like me who uses Weapon Expert level 3 and Bargain level 3 and doesn't want to use scoped in because I use an AK-47 with the scope zoom and the accuracy mod. You know, that would be useful to someone like me. So think about that. If there's a headgear piece like that, that could help complete loadouts for players who otherwise are using loadouts that are less seen in the game's multiplayer, which is, again, another pretty cool side effect that they've created by creating these items. Now, it depends on how many headgear items or pieces or whatever change your stats. We don't know how many will. We don't know if all of them will. It's not really said. It could just be only certain headgear pieces. It could be only a couple. It could only be a few. But that doesn't mean Naughty Dog can't add more in the future, does it? No. If people actually really like this, they could add more headgear pieces that increase or decrease your stats, and thus furthering to balance the game in a different way, so they don't have to keep constantly adjusting guns for the player base that is constantly craving a more balanced game. With that said, thank you for listening and watching, and I will see you guys in a while. Hope you enjoyed. Peace.